Welcome, my friends. I have a phenomenal episode ahead for you. Lion Goodman is a coach. He is an author, a healer, and teacher. And oh my gosh, does he have some things to teach us today? He has a near-death experience that will blow your mind. No pun intended. You'll know what I mean in a few minutes. So, get a glass of water. Make sure you're uninterrupted for this episode because it is worth your full attention. And I'll see you on the other side. Hi, I'm Tamara Zoner. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. Come in, sit down, and grab a cup of love. Welcome to Spirit Cafe, Lion Goodman. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Tamara. It's great to be here.
So why don't we begin? You have kind of an incredible story. So, like any good book, we start where the action is. Why don't you just jump right into what was your pivotal moment and your kind of before and after in a nutshell.
It has to be a pretty small nut, I understand. I grew up kind of a weird, lonely kid, but I got interested in consciousness and religion and spirituality and God and psychic phenomenon pretty early. And so I graduated with a degree in consciousness studies in 1975. That was a long time ago. Probably one of the first degrees granted in that field. I haven't found anyone that got one earlier. But nobody was hiring people with consciousness degrees. so I couldn't find a job. And so I became a traveling salesman. And I traveled around the Southwest for about a year and a half, not really knowing what I was doing. I was kind of like a hippie on the road, and I'd stop and help people along the way. And I was 26 years old. I was kind of tired of traveling, but I didn't know what to do next. I thought maybe go back to medical school and become a psychiatrist or get a PhD in psychology. I was a bit lost. And I picked up a fellow whose car had broken down in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And he traveled with me for 3 days. And I grew to trust him, sent him on errands, became kind of friends. And then the third night out, he pulled out a gun and shot me in the head 4 times. So that was a pivotal moment because I knew I was going to die. And I had an out-of-body experience and realized, oh, I'm definitely not my body. I sort of knew that intuitively before, but that was like a real wake-up moment of being out of body and looking down and going, oh, how amusing that little scene is down there where that man is shooting that other man. Oh, that's me down there.
Wow.
And to make a very long story very short, we ended up talking for 8 hours after the incident, trying to figure out how to let each other go because he didn't want to go to jail and I didn't want to be dead.
Right.
So it took 8 hours of conversation to get to the point where we figured out a way to do that. And that was certainly a pivotal moment of, thinking I was going to be dead, finding out I was alive. It was sort of like being reborn without having to go through the nasty diaper stage again,
I'd say it was a pretty nasty event, though.
Well, it was, but I became awakened by it. I don't recommend it as a path to awakening for other people, but it worked for me. Sometimes I think I have a very hard head and I need to be, waking up with a big stick.
I mean, that's a pretty extreme stick.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, what did you ever come to understand what prompted this after 3 days of being together and
Oh,
why he stuck
yeah.
around?
Yes, I asked him all about his story during those 8 hours. I understood that he had grown up in poverty and with an alcoholic father who beat him, and then he went to the army, but he didn't like the discipline, so he left and went AWOL. Then he got involved in drug deals, and drug deals went bad, and he stole money, and the drug dealers were after him, and so he stole his father's gun and some money and went on the road, but then his car broke down and he had decided to kill whoever stopped to help him. And apparently I volunteered. I put my hand up and said, okay, yeah, I'll be that person for you. And toward the end of this 8 hours, he let me out of the van and I went down to, he pointed down to a pond and we walked down to this pond and he was behind me. I thought, well, he could shoot me in the back, but I felt invincible somehow. And so I washed all the blood off my face. The bleeding had stopped and I didn't know where the bullets had gone. Um, and I stood up and looked at him and he sort of held the gun out to me and he said, what would you do if I handed you this gun? And I said, I'd throw it out in the water there. And he said, you wouldn't shoot me? I said, no. He said, you wouldn't try to kill me? I said, no, why would I do that? We're both here. We're both okay. And he looked at me very strangely and said, man, you are the weirdest person I've ever met. And I knew I was probably the weirdest person he would ever meet because I wasn't angry. I was filled with God light and golden love and all that. So he was just included in that. There was no anger. I was conscious through the whole thing. So there was no, there wasn't any trauma to hold on to. It was just something that had happened and there we were. So we figured out a way to let each other go. And I took myself to the hospital and the doctor who sewed up my scalp said, you're a lucky man. You had 2 bullets creased your skull. And I knew I was actually blessed, not just lucky. So.
Wow. Wow. How was it as you had that moment of out of body, and you're seeing this happen? What brought you back into the body? And was it at that point that you had this, that you were filled with this light and this love?
No, I was filled with light and love from the time I knew I was going to die. And I said, oh, I'm coming home, God. I'm getting ready. And so I just opened up to God light. And I was filled with light and love for the whole thing once I knew I was going to be dead. And what brought me back was the 4th bullet that hit me and sent my head flying to the side and all this blood rushing down. And suddenly I was back in my body. And I thought, I'm supposed to be out of my body. Why am I back in my body? And then I started sort of checking. I had studied dance and mime and physiology and anatomy. So I was checking myself to see what had happened, what was lost, because I figured if the bullet had gone through my skull, something would be lost, but I felt intact. And that's when I didn't know what had happened, but I was still filled with love light, just back in my body and in pain. And so I picked up my head and I turned to him because I wanted to look in the eyes of my assassin before I died. And that's when he freaked out and he jumped up and he said, why aren't you dead, man? You're supposed to be dead. And I said, I didn't know the answer to that question. I just said, here I am. And he said, it's too weird, man. It's just like my dream this morning. And I said, what dream? He said, I dreamt I was shooting at this guy and he wouldn't die, but it wasn't you. It was somebody else in the dream. And that's when I knew something weird was going on because that was just too strange. I thought to myself, who wrote this script and how did I get in this movie? And I don't remember signing a contract.
Right.
So anyway, that began the 8 hours of conversation.
Wow. And so what did you learn from that? What did you come out of that with? What new knowledge or awareness? I mean, probably a lot
A
more than.
lot. Yeah. Yeah.
But what was it for, do you feel?
What was it for?
What was it
Well,
for?
looking back, it was for awakening. It was hard to think of that at the moment because I thought it was for death, originally. But looking back on it, I realized that I was being initiated in some way into a different zone. I had a completely different perspective on life, knowing, I had studied death and dying, so I knew theoretically that we don't actually die. The body dies, but we don't. But then I had the actual experience of being completely out of my body and looking down and seeing what was happening. So that perspective shifted everything. Yeah.
So what did you do afterwards? So what
Uh,
you were still like a traveling sales guy before this. What did you do after you come out of the hospital? Life is completely altered for you because of your new awareness. What do you do?
well, the first thing I knew for sure is I wanted to get off the road. I did not want to be a traveling salesman anymore. Um, a friend of mine came and sort of took care of me during the couple of weeks that it took me for to sort of get my bearings again. And then I started looking for a job, and strangely, I got a job as a headhunter after having my head hunted, which I thought was ironic.
Nobody said God doesn't have a sense of humor, right?
Right, right. And that became my career for 25 years. I was helping executives find talent for their companies, and I built my own firm eventually and built it into $1 million executive search firm. And then I got into coaching, executive coaching, and coaching people. And then I realized all these tools that I had gathered over decades, because once that happened, I was like really passionate about trying to figure out what is consciousness, what's the nature of human nature, why are we here, what's, that really further sparked my interest in that topic. And so I took over 100 workshops and trainings during that 25-year period,
Okay.
including shamanic practices and workshops and studying with gurus and teachers all over the place. So I became a passionate learner again. And at one point, I realized, oh, I have this ability to help others and to teach others what I've accumulated over these years. So 20 years ago, I changed and became a coach and a teacher and a, a therapist of the psyche.
Okay. So I'm curious, can we go back to the 25 years you're in this corporate world, you're doing
Yeah.
headhunting, you're like, did it also feel like an out of body experience? Because here you are in this corporate world, but also taking these workshops and going deeper in shamanism and consciousness and everything that was your foundation in your education.
Yeah.
You have like this dual, it almost feels like a split personality, right?
That's so accurate. It's so accurate. By day I would put on a tie and a suit and be in the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco, dealing with corporate executives. And by night and on weekends, I'd be drumming and taking medicine and doing things to alter my consciousness. And I always tried to figure out how can I combine them. Like where do they intersect? They were so disparate. And so every once in a while, I'd meet another executive with kind of a hidden life. I talked to one guy, a very high level consultant in a big company, and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm taking a few days off." Oh, where are you going? Oh, I'm doing this thing. It's called a ceremony. I said, "Oh, I'm very interested in ceremonies. What are you doing?" He said, "Well, it has to do with Native American traditions." I said, "Well, I follow some Native American traditions." Anyway,
Vague because it's corporate land.
he was doing a vision quest, and we were like, oh, we're both secret vision questers. So that was great fun when I could find somebody like that. But for the most part, it was pretty dead territory for spirituality. You couldn't talk about it. It was too woo woo.
Right,
Eventually, now today people are talking about it all over the place, but at the time it was a hidden passion.
right. And I mean, did you feel in alignment with with the purpose of that big event, getting shot? Like clearly, if you're going to move forward in your life, you're going to take on the meaning that there was a purpose for it, right? Otherwise, you're just like, why the hell did somebody shoot me? And you would not have had the personal success that you've had in your life. So you made this meaning and had this awakening. And did you feel stifled in the corporate world? And what what took you so long to step out of it and into what seems to be what you're really here for?
Damn, that's a good question. Nobody has asked me that. uh, golly, what did take me so long? I guess I'm a slow learner.
So you literally had to be shot in the head to take your new path. And then okay, dig deeper than you're a learner. I mean, you do this for a living now. So
I was a member of Business for Social Responsibility very early when it started. So I was always trying to find that intersection between business and spirituality. It wasn't easy. I was part of an organization that was teaching about consciousness, and the head of the organization said, no, we don't work with corporations because they don't have a soul. We only work with souls. And I thought, okay, well, that makes a certain kind of sense, but it's composed of souls, you know. So I was always seeking that interface. And when the dot bomb happened and my headhunting company went down the tubes, I was kind of lost for a while until a girlfriend said, well, why don't you become a coach? And I said, I don't know anything about coaching. And she said, of course you do. You've been coaching executives for 25 years and you've done all this internal practice. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm going to give you my clients. And I went, okay. So that's
That lined right up for you.
yeah, exactly. So that's how it started. And I just fell in love with it and realized that I had all these tools that I could help people with. And then magic started happening.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, now I'm doing like the math in my head, and you certainly don't look old enough to have all of this life experience.
I
I've
know. It's
got like 9 lives going on.
this is how it's supposed to look if you take good care of yourself.
I love that answer. Thank you. That's what
I'm if you want to know, I'm 70.
that's what I was, because you graduated the year after I was born, and I was like, well, wait, I mean, you don't look that much older than me. So that's amazing. And I mean, I feel for sure that the way we care for our inner being is a reflection on what other people are seeing in it. And so that's clear to you. Your inner being shines light with this agelessness.
Mm.
And that's really beautiful. Um, gosh, I have so many questions for you. See, this is why I don't like to know too much about my guests. Now I'm like all fired up with curiosity. And I know that we have some people in common. I just spoke with Marcy Shimoff the other night. I trained with her. And so you wrote a book with her, I saw just in your
No, I didn't. Oh, well, yes, we're in the same book. We wrote a book.
book.
We're
Okay.
members of the same book. Yes,
Yeah.
called Healing Trauma. Yes, right. And her husband was in my men's group for many years. We're good friends. So yeah,
Nice.
so we're connected in a couple of ways.
I love that. And so there's always like, the deeper learning, the deeper learning, the deeper learning. But what is the message that you live today? What's the learning that people get from you simply by your example, even without direct coaching?
Hmm. We are beings of light. We are beings that are multidimensional. We're living this human life, but being human's only one small group of dimensions among the infinite dimensions that we're part of. And that the more connected we are to our multidimensionality and how many aspects there are of ourselves and the amazing wonder that we are, the more you can live life from that place. And every moment is precious. Every moment's beautiful. Every person is beautiful. And I teach in particular about how to clear beliefs from the psyche. And what I realized in all my studies were that beliefs are the infrastructure of the human mind in the same way that neurons are the infrastructure of the brain. And that beliefs are not just thoughts, not just mental thoughts, but actually the structure upon which we build our personality and we build our mind and we build our understandings. So if you have beliefs that are supportive of who you are, then you're living a wonderful life. And if you have beliefs that are interfering or limiting you in some way, then you're put in a smaller and smaller box. And so I teach a methodology for breaking the box open and allowing people to find out who they really are.
Yeah, that is so important. And I was reading, you do a lot of work with the subconscious mind. I love the subconscious mind in all the ways that it tries to protect us. And it's like
Yeah.
sweetheart that just wants to take care of us, but really it's not helping us. So how do you help people make those deeper connections and get through those? How do you break that box open, Lion?
I teach a grouping of tools that I've learned over those 50 years of study and practice that are all aimed at the multidimensionality of our experience. So you can change your mind, you can change your thoughts, but just saying an affirmation or deciding to think differently doesn't get to the subconscious structure. You can beat on a pillow and express your emotions, which is great, but it doesn't necessarily change either the mental structure or the physical structure or the energetic structure or the relational structure, right? So we have all these aspects of ourselves. So all of my technologies are based on the fact that we are multidimensional, that our experience is multidimensional. Therefore, beliefs are multidimensional because they're made of experience. And so all these technologies are based on how to work with that whole self, the complete self. Because when you clear something from the complete self, it's done. It goes away. It doesn't come back. If you just work on a part of one of these belief structures, you just change your mind, or you energetically tap, or you physically express. It doesn't get to the whole matrix, and that's why it keeps coming back over and over and over again. And there's a lot of people out there who say, well, yeah, it's always going to come back. You just have to have strategies for dealing with it coming back, right? And I'm saying, no, it can actually be cleared. That's what I do, is I clear the psyche completely by using these multidimensional practices so that it is gone, and you don't have to keep doing the thing you did to clear it once. So that's the secret sauce of my clear beliefs method.
Okay. Okay. And that's a great name for it. Because I'm thinking of like all these different people's work and my work, which I don't dip into the multidimensional space. So where do people start? And so say I have like the core limiting belief that I hear 1,000 times a day is I'm not enough, period, right? It's every limiting belief that I work with specifically boils down to this: I'm not enough. So, like, that's the messaging that I've heard my whole life. And I don't want to have a massive wake up call like you had to believe that there's something different along my path for me. And I want to have a deeper awareness. Where do I begin?
Well, you've already begun by you've begun by identifying the belief, but the belief is a thought in a verbal conscious mind. I'm not enough, but it's based on an experience or a set of experiences. And so if I were taking you through my process, I would say first feel what it feels like to know that you're not enough. And that's a awful feeling. But it's in the body. You can identify it in the body because we have to work with embodiment as one of the structures, right? And I would invite you and everyone listening to just feel what it feels like to hold the belief, I'm not enough, and close your eyes and just feel what it is in your body. Where do you notice it in your body? And so, Tamara, where do you notice that feeling when you take it on, when you try on that belief, even though you know it's not true at another level of consciousness?
Yeah, definitely solar plexus. It's like, right.
Mm-hmm. And what does that feeling feel like in the solar plexus? What if you could identify its size and shape and texture? What would you say?
It is like that big. So those of you who are listening, I'm like, it's like a baseball, but denser.
Mm-hmm. And if it were made of some material, what would that be? If it were, what's that density?
It's clay.
Okay. And what color is it?
It's brown.
Okay, so it's brown clay, about the size of a baseball and dense. And is it putting pressure in any particular direction, or is it not putting pressure?
Yeah, it's a weight, but not weighed down, weighed back.
Okay, very good, very good. Um, and is it moving at all, or is it still?
It's still.
Okay, so um, every sensation like that is a messenger that's knocking on our door. And if you keep ignoring the message, it knocks louder and louder until finally it takes out a sledgehammer and breaks your door down, right?
Yeah.
So put your attention on that clay, that dense clay baseball shape that's putting pressure toward the back. First, allow it to be there because it's part of you. So give it space and room. And then just gently put your attention on it and ask it, what message do you have for me? And then listen to whatever it has to say.
It's very quiet.
Okay, that's fine. Ask it, would you speak with me?
Okay. Yeah, it's saying it's an anchor, which I think is a lie.
Okay, that's your conscious mind
Yep.
arguing with your subconscious. That's fine. So, first of all, thank it for anchoring you. Just thank it for being an anchor. It's good to be courteous to the parts of the body that are speaking. We
Okay.
call this the body wisdom process.
Mm.
And ask it, when did you begin in my life?
Oh, that was baby, teeny little pea.
Hmm. Good. And thank it again for communicating and say, how did you come to this conclusion? What was happening?
Mm. There was it was so what I'm hearing is that mom was having some chaos.
Hmm. Right. So you were inside your mom. She was experiencing chaos. She was feeling I'm not enough.
Mhm.
You were eating what she was eating, thinking what she was thinking, and feeling what she was feeling inside the womb.
Mhm.
You were a live, living being, but you were part of her. So this belief came from your mother. It was an inherited belief. It didn't come from you. So that's the first thing to know. And the next step of the process would be I would help you clear it by giving it back to her because it was
Oh,
hers.
yeah, that's amazing. That's really beautiful.
Hmm.
Wow. I love it. I mean, do you consider that energy work?
No, I don't call it that. I call it belief work.
Okay.
Energetics the energy is part of the multidimensionality of this infrastructure that I refer to as beliefs. Some people call it paradigms or schemas, or there's lots of names for it. But this infrastructural material that the mind is made of, right? So we're going down into the core of it, where you began to form who you are out of these elements called experiences and identified patterns, and then eventually you'll have names for those patterns. But a baby will figure these things out experientially. So a baby will cry and someone will come and take care of them, and then the baby will figure out, well, if I cry and make a fuss, I will get cared for. That's a good belief for a baby, right? Now, it's not so good for an adult, and some adults are still using that technology of crying and making a fuss to get attention, right? Right. So our beliefs are supposed to mature and change, but they don't. They just get piled on top of by new beliefs, and all the old ones are still in the subconscious mind. And
Mm.
so when certain things happen, they pop up and they start operating, taking over driving the bus, and all of a sudden we're in reaction, or we're, feeling bad, or that kind of thing. So the technology I developed is based on clearing them completely, all these processes that are part imaginal, part physical, part mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. Um, and so that's when you get a complete clearing, and it goes away and it never comes back.
Yeah, it's so thorough. So
Hmm.
thorough. So what are the shifts that you see in people? Maybe if it's not against your protocol, you could share an experience that one of your clients has had, like where they came from and then the result.
Sure. One of my favorite stories is a multimillionaire who came to me, and he was a multimillionaire because he made millions, then he lost millions, then he made millions, then he lost millions. and and he was, pardon me, he was tired of the pattern, and so I'm called the subconscious pattern detective. So he came to me, and we did my process, and he suddenly remembered being 3 years old and walking on the streets of New York with his mother, hand in hand, and he saw a shiny penny on the ground, and he got very excited, and he reached down to pick it up, and she jerked him back and said, "Don't touch that, it's dirty."
Oh,
And he suddenly realized, like you realized just now, that the reason he couldn't hold on to his money was because it was dirty and he shouldn't touch it.
right.
So he was very good at making the money, but he couldn't keep it. So that shifted his life. He didn't have to lose his money anymore after that. So that's a fun story, but it's one of the of many hundreds I have with my clients.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's that those beliefs form so early and they just lock us in. And I really appreciate what you said about how we can add new beliefs on top, but those old ones are still there. And, we can create new patterns and those can be at the forefront, but the old ones are still lying underneath.
Right.
And then when we get into stress and, our automatic responses take over, we might not get the new pattern that we worked so hard to create. We might get that really old one that's
Exactly.
lingering.
Mhm,
And so that's
mhm.
why it's so important then to get like literally to the base of the formation of those beliefs.
Absolutely. I use the analogy of a garden. Like if you're going to build a garden in your backyard, the first thing you do is you clear the soil of the rocks and the weeds. You don't throw your seeds, your new seeds on rocky, weedy ground. You're not going to get much going. So you clear the soil first. And then when you plant, the plants have a chance to root and grow and flower and fruit, right? That's what you do with a garden. The same is true with the mind, is affirmations and trying new beliefs on and just do it and all these strategies are throwing good seeds on top of rocky, weedy ground. And the clearing process is clearing the rocks and the weeds so that you can, when you do implant a new belief, it can grow and it can take root and it can actually live in your life. But most of the time, people are trying to put new stuff on top of old stuff, and all they get is the conflict between the old stuff and the new stuff.
Okay.
And that's why it's a struggle. Life is a struggle so much.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like the soil's not prepared for the seeds you're trying to plant, so it can't grow there.
Right.
Yeah. Garden girl here. Love it. Bring as close as we record this and excited. Ah, so much good stuff. So do you feel like, okay, do you feel like that what could have been a traumatic event, but was your awakening? Do you feel like that had to happen for you to get to where you are today?
Well, that's a very good philosophical question because the ancient Greeks thought that we actually were walking backwards into the future because we could see the past, but we couldn't see the future. Which and that's sort of the kind of question you asked. It's like, did it have to happen? Well, based on who I became, yes, but did it have to happen as I was moving forward? I have no idea because who can know that? Who can know that? God knows that maybe, but not us little people. So um, it sure seems like it was needed to shift me out of this sort of I don't know who I am or what I'm doing to oh my God, now I know who I am and what I need to do. So, but it was still exploratory. I was 26 years old, so I was still pretty young. But I ended up getting married, having a kid, having a business, being successful. And being successful, I think, was part of my path because it's not what I do is not just woo woo, magic presto changeo. It's very pragmatic. It's like you want to accomplish something, let's clear the beliefs out of the way that are in the way of your accomplishing that, because we are here to do something on this planet. We're not here just to have a good time and have a party. We are here to make a better world, and so we have to clear out our personal crap in order to get to work and start helping other people and turning the world around, because social reality, economics, politics, laws, these are just as important as our personal feelings. And so if we're not actively involved in making the world a better place, we're not here for the right reason.
I totally agree. And if we don't take the time to clean up our own stuff, we can't be of service in the world for that collective
Absolutely.
of making it a better place.
Absolutely.
When people ask, well, it's or say it's selfish of me to spend time or money or energy on myself. It's actually the best thing that they can do for the world. Would
Right.
you?
It's the first investment, but don't get caught there.
Right, right. There's more to do. Like, and it can happen simultaneously, right? I can be working on
Yes.
and clearing old beliefs and being a better version of myself and also make a difference in the world at the same time.
We have to, because we have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of beliefs. Not all of them are interfering, but we have to keep clearing the interfering ones. There's lots of those. And you're working in the world and something comes up, right? you react to someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly it's like, "Argh!" And, well, that's an old belief that came up, and you have to clear it. Now, with the tools that I give my clients, they can do that themselves. They don't have to come back to me over and over again. They have the tools. They can go, I can clear it. I'll give you a great story example. I walked into a party once as an adult, and I knew there was going to be a good party. So I walked into this house, and suddenly I felt weird. It was through my whole body, this weird feeling I couldn't identify. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I knew something had gotten triggered. So I sat down right near the front door, and I closed my eyes, and I did my process. I said, "What belief are you?" And it said, "I don't belong here." And I went, "Oh, that one." I thought I had cleared that one, but something triggered it. Maybe a smell, or maybe somebody's hand movement. It could have been anything that triggered this old belief. And so I did my process. I cleared it out. I implanted the new belief. I belong here. I stood up, opened my eyes. It was a completely different party. Now people were friendly. It was warm. I felt comfortable. And, people were waving me over saying, "Hey, Lion, good to see you. Come on over." So that took 20 seconds.
Wow.
With a technology like this, you can shift anything that happens. So you get mad at your kid, and boom, you can get out of your mad in 20 seconds and clear whatever that thing is that triggered you. So that's the way to live. The stuff's going to come up because life is complex and hard, and it has all of its tricks and
Yeah, it's a human experience,
right,
right?
exactly.
It's going to happen. That's beautiful. That's so empowering. I really love when coaches and leaders actually give the tools to the people that they work with so that they then know how to use them. That's the way we teach, right? I'm not trying to hold dominion over people. I'm trying to give them dominion over them.
Empower them, right?
Yeah.
Empower them truly. Mhm.
Oh, good. Oh, I could talk to you all day. I have so many more questions, but tell us so for all the people listening who have so many more questions and want to know more about you and potentially want to work with you or read your books because you have a bunch of them. How do we find you? Where do we start?
I offer a monthly free event where people can come and explore their beliefs on a particular topic: relationships, finances, money, work, life. So they can sign up for those at beliefrelief.net. And if they want to learn more about me, they can look at liongoodman.com. That's lion like the animal, Lion, goodman.com. And if they're interested in my training, I've trained over 600 coaches, therapists, and healers around the world in this methodology. Very powerful stuff. They can find me at clearbeliefs.com.
Awesome. I will put all of those links in the show notes. And then your name's just so cool. Like Lion Goodman. Yes. Was that your birth name?
No, my parents gave me an assumed name.
Okay.
They assumed I would like it when I grew up, and I didn't.
That's all parents do or hope.
Right. So I changed my name when I was 19, but the last name was inherited.
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's good. Thank you so much. I like to ask one last question. If you could give life advice in a sentence, what is it? I'm making you work for your money here. What do we need to know?
You are a being of light. Remember.
That's beautiful. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. This has been really cool. That's the word I'm going to use.
Thank you, Tamara. I really appreciate being here. Appreciate what you do. Thank you for being and doing what you be and do.
Love that. You are welcome, and thank you. How about that? What did you think of that episode, that conversation with Lion Goodman that I feel so grateful to have had? I want to read your thoughts, hear your thoughts, and please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe button, or rate and review us wherever you are listening to this from. Just take a moment, because these are the conversations I want to keep having and that I believe the world needs more of. So would you help me? If you loved this episode as much as I loved recording it, share it. Share it. Let's get these conversations about consciousness and all the gifts that they have to bring to humanity into the world. You could change one person's life today. Are you willing to do it? I will talk to you again next week. It is my deep honor and gratitude to be your host, and I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you for joining us on Spirit Cafe. Please leave all comments on our Spirit Cafe Facebook page or in the comments below our YouTube videos.